one word that I think relates to the education that our children deserve, it's the act of intentionality. It's that the choices that teachers make always need to be very, very intentional. If we don't know, or if teachers don't know, how the choices they make may impact the learning of their children, then you have to ask yourself, well, why am I doing this? And I think one thing that I've learned in observations of the teachers at Whatcom Day Academy is that their practices are very intentional. And to allow my students the opportunity to see the degree of intentionality at an institution like Whatcom Day Academy is very helpful, because it really teaches them that they always need to know why they're making the choices that they're making. It's not because it's convenient. It's not because I've seen it done. It's not because it's something that seems like it's best practice, but rather it's because I understand why these particular practices and strategies and moves that I make as a teacher are going to impact the learning of the children with whom I work. Well, we got started with Whatcom Day Academy a couple years ago when I was teaching an early literacy learning course at Western Washington University. And I knew that Whatcom Day was a great place to bring a class, because they're really thinking about aligning their early learning curriculum for students, between the ages of 2 and 4, all the way up through the primary grades and then beyond. So they're thinking very systematically about the ways that they can link the learning that's happening in early grades to the kinds of learning and what it looks like as students gain a stronger understandings of those traditional ways that we view print and writing, and get more specific kinds of skills that support their learning. And I thought that that was really powerful. It also afforded an opportunity to invest my students, or give them a chance to invest in each of the classrooms there and spend a lot of time both observing students learning in literacy-based situations, and also observing really high-quality teaching and getting some chances to facilitate some of that learning. The environment was really flexible for that kind of those kinds of opportunities, and it also allowed for opportunities to move across different classrooms within one practicum experience, which is relatively rare in higher education. Usually we situate students in one classroom and that's where they stay, but being in a school that's so flexible and where teachers are working so well together, it really makes it quite easy to enable opportunities for students to go from classroom to classroom and compare their learning across classrooms.
Children have made, and so we were wondering what the writing process is that you start them out with.
So in this video clip, we see my students toward the end of a project that they've been working on, a classroom literacy investigation project, where throughout a 6 to 8 week period, they've been in a classroom, and they're with Ms. Duffner in this case, doing observations of her teaching, observations of the literacy environment, observations of children learning, and doing some facilitation of children's learning within that environment. And so on this day, they have an opportunity to interview the teacher about some of the things that they've been seeing, and rather than it just being observational, they get a chance to access some of the thinking that the teacher goes through to make the choices she does in terms of the way she lays out her classroom, in terms of some of the daily rituals and structures she uses to facilitate kids' learning, and provide some clarification of some of the observations that my students had been seeing over time.
So as far as like their actual sentences, do you help them, how do you help them, do they write themselves the words?
If they want to, yeah.
So one thing that we emphasize in early literacy is the power of oral language to facilitate early literacy connections for young children. That talk is really the mechanism through which that they engage in the world from a very early age. And so when I do model storytelling for my students, or when I work with children in storytelling, it's really using talk and story and narrative as a model for the kinds of interactions that most support young children's learning, rather than connecting to print as the primary mechanism for a kid's learning. It is through those oral language engagements and talk, and attaching that talk to compelling narratives, fun, kinesthetic movement, drama, theater, and story concepts like beginning, middle, and end.
So Mary showed Jack how to set a trap.
12 sticks they gathered from the green willow tree, long and strong and narrow as can be. Mary gathered 6 sticks, good, and Jack a half a dozen more. Woo!
And together they wound the first 4. Well, the next 4 sticks round the first ones were bound, and the last 4 tied the trigger to the trap.